Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this conference. Quick show of hands, who's from a council here? Or Sydney Council? So, I suppose most of you are probably embarking on that journey of implementing FOGO, so hopefully my presentation will provide some, I suppose, learnings or takeaways that you can bring back to your council. The wonderful thing about council is plagiarism is approved, so there's no point reinventing the wheel. Before I get started, and obviously the focal point on my presentation is really about, the council's endorsed the service model, we've awarded contract, and the focus of this presentation is really that next step of implementing that service model. But before I get started, I'd like to say thanks to my waste team and some of the members are here today. You hate to forget to think, but they're the ones that actually did the physical work. I'm just up here taking the credit. But yeah, so I suppose this is a clicker. I'll figure it out as I go. But my presentation is really divided into a couple of sections. It's where is Parramatta, what's changing or what changed, how we delivered the change, the challenges that we came across and how we solutionized it, what's next, and obviously the next steps, and obviously what lessons we learnt along the way. So City of Parramatta, we're geographically and demographically the centre of Sydney, with a population of 280,000, with 100,000 residents. And, we span about 80 square kilometres. We're also earmarked as a rapid growing city, with annual population growth rate of just under 2%. We're also a diverse community, as you probably note in the last point, where a large proportion of our community speak a second language, with Chinese, Korean, Hindi and Arabic. Oops, sorry. They said to point at the camera. Oh, I went too far. There we go. So council rolled out its FOGO service in November of last year as part of the new waste contract, which spans over the next 10 years with options to extend. So what actually changed? First and foremost, we introduced a weekly organics service. So for the most part, Parramatta's had organics collection, but that was fortnightly, and it was only for the garden organics as of November. Food waste is going into that bin and it's collected weekly. What also changed was the garbage bin. Historically, our households had a 140 litre service. That was reduced to an 80 litre service being the standard, with residents having the option to upgrade should they wish. And to support the FOGO service, each household received a kitchen caddy, as well as a distribution of liners every 6 months. Also acknowledging that some households might have greater needs, they were able to pick up liners from any of our Parramatta libraries. I just want to highlight the fact that due to the size and complexity of our LGA, we are rolling out FOGO in 2 stages. The first stage was to SUDs and MUDs below 30 unit complexes, with stage 2 being planned at the moment. That will be rolled out to the remainder of our unit complexes, which are the high density developments that we obviously acknowledge needed a bit more bespoke arrangement and working with those individual complexes for a solution that sort of works for us as well as them. I guess through our journey, the single biggest focal point of our rollout wasn't so much about the introduction of FOGO, and we learned that along the way, but the focal point was about taking away the 140 litre garbage service and giving residents with an 80. And that perhaps probably made up 50% of our workload when it came to service requests and inquiries. And so, obviously part of the best practice that we consider was being fluid and able to pivot and respond to that quickly. This gives you a bit of a snapshot in terms of our communication and engagement plan. what I believe we did well was we engaged, not only did we engage with our councillors and executive team early on in the journey and got their buy-in, or most certainly got their buy-in and decision and guidance early on, which obviously helped with getting endorsements and whatnot, but we also engaged early on with our internal stakeholders in terms of the communication, design elements, as well as our rates team and IT team, bringing them along the journey at the beginning so that they could be part of that decision making. And I was upfront from the beginning. I said to them, this is a significant change. It's one of the single biggest change in Parramatta in the last couple of decades. And we need you as part of the journey because, you know, you guys are subject matter experts when it comes to rates adjustments, which there is a significant component when we were changing the domestic waste charge for houses going from a 140 to an 80, which we needed the rates and IT team, as well as the marketing and design team in terms of developing the community. Because at the end of the day, you know, we're waste people. We know how to provide a waste service, but it's shaping that into a communication and what messaging to use to the community. You know, we were heavily relying on our community and communication and design team to come up with the strategies and execution. So, you know, my fairly simple response to them was, we need to do this. I can offer you the support. Just tell me how much money you need, how many resources you need, and I'll find a way to get that for you. So working with our comms team, we wanted our FOGO campaign to be catchy. I mean, you only have to look at sort of famous companies, you know, just look at Nike, and you know, you automatically associate Nike with Just Do It. So we, you know, obviously as a team, we conceptualised and went, how do we make our FOGO campaign catchy? I mean, obviously we don't have the endless budget like Nike, but you know, there's not a reason to stop us. And as we sort of workshopped and solutionised that, we found that, you know, if we come up with a catchy phrase or a jingle, we can get that conversation started. And we landed on the theme, which is Feed It to FOGO. One of the other things, our particular focus on the campaign was also centred around kids and young family, because most certainly they made a significant portion of our demographics, and they're also the future generation. You know, influencing them on from early on helps create that generational shift towards embracing, you know, FOGO and the change. I don't know, but I assume that a lot of you, like myself, have kids, and you find that kids are very influential. I just hope technology works now, because I'll show you the jingle and I can probably... There we go. And I think that you guys might be walking out of here remembering this jingle, and if it does, then it's done its job.
They'd like you to know about a change to where your everyday scraps will go. It'll really help reduce our landfill waste, plus will make Parramatta a heaps good place. It's a new thing called FOGO. FOGO? FOGO. FOGO? It's where your food organics and garden organics go. Here we go. Meat and veggie scraps, last week's fish, eggs and dairy too. It's a really long list. Basically anything you can eat or grow. Feed it to FOGO. It helps you keep your red bin thin. Cause now you got a place to put your food scraps in. When that old takeaway needs a place to decay, and last Tuesday's dinner is no longer a winner, and before the prawn shells get those nasty smells, oh, feed it to FOGO. And when your kitchen caddy's full, you just take it outside and feed it to me, yo. Feed it to FOGO.
So I touched a bit about the process. So obviously, you know, we started early on with internal stakeholders going, you know, this is the outcome we want to get to. We need your support. So sort of outline the resources and, you know, in terms of, you know, manpower budgets that you would need to help us assist that. So, you know, there was a lengthy negotiation process, and we'll just leave it at that. We'll call it negotiation. But we finally landed on an outcome where we put on additional staff from customer service within my own waste team, as well as communication design, provided additional support to rates. We created fancy dashboards that were shared across the different stakeholders, so we can monitor live the number of service requests that we were receiving, the sort of issues we were tackling, so we can respond to them fairly quickly. And part of my commitment was also, giving weekly updates to the executive team, as well as the communication team, providing regular updates to our councillors so that everyone's in the loop. But I suppose the key one out of all this was, having the resources, that support to be able to respond to any pivots in your planned program as quickly as possible. Because if there's one thing I learned in waste, is that people are very precious about waste and their rubbish, and what you might think is a small problem can quickly escalate, and it's only expedited and exacerbated these days with social media. So some of our difficulties in rolling out the program is we've got a very diverse and transient population. So the challenge was trying to connect with as many residents as possible. And how we solutionised that was we did a lot of door knocking. We basically flooded our social media with FOGO in the months leading up, and once FOGO was delivered, we flooded the social media. We actually employed a dedicated social media person that was on our social media, responding to questions and putting things out on social media so that the message was getting communicated. We also have, apart from a transit population, and what I noted before, a lot of non-English speaking background people. So we did a lot of workshops in different languages, and we also made a lot of our collaterals in different languages, but also with a key focus on, big, bold, graphics that people can resonate with, regardless of, whether they can or can't speak or read English. We utilised other assets that we owned in council, so, bus shelters. I don't know the technical term for it, but we've got a number of poles throughout our LGA where we put flags, and we specifically designed FOGO flags so that it was basically in your face in the lead up to FOGO, and mostly after it. We also, so I'll move on. So these are just some of the photos, as you note, that we did a lot of pop-up stores. So that's going to our town centres, train stations, and just having that presence. So we're capturing people as they're going about their daily business or rushing to and from work, trying to grab a bit of their moment, sort of leaning on the experience of those charity organisations that try to catch you as you go about, as well as attendance at family fun days. Leading on the theme, just more photos, but leading on the theme of trying to engage the kids, we actually, so your bottom right, my bottom left, you'll notice Mike there with a puppet. So we actually had that puppet made, and we worked with Mike and his team to come up with a puppet show, which we then rolled out and did presentations. And don't quote me on it, but I think to date we've probably run about 15 or so of these workshops. And they've been quite engaging, and we've received a lot of positive feedback. And most certainly, I personally, on a personal note, have had a few parents reach out to me about their kids influencing them on behaviour change and whatnot. So, We also rolled out a FOGO champion where we engaged Joe Taranto to run that program for us. I won't speak too much into the details because I understand Joe is doing a presentation later on today, so I'll let her speak to that. But essentially, we had over 100 people registered for becoming a champion, and 40 of them went through with the training. And the idea of these champions was, that extra mouthpiece out in the community, helping to spread the message of FOGO, whether it's to their neighbours in their complex or their neighbours on the street. So cold education, again, in the interest of time, I'll fly through that. But essentially, it's just reinforcing that, we translated all our collaterals into the main languages and focused on a lot of pictures. Like any council, at the start of rolling out FOGO, we spoke to other councils, learnt what they learnt, try to copy that because there was no need to reinvent the wheel. So, we thought we were pretty confident. We learned from their mistakes. We won't repeat it. So we developed a whole bunch of FAQs and strategized on how we delivered it. But, along the way, we had to adapt and pivot. The importance, I suppose, of this liner, and there's a funny story, which I've told some of you already, but when we rolled out the liners, a lot of complaints we received was, we don't know how to open the liner. And so last minute, we had to develop a video to teach people how to open the liner. I'll leave it at that. There was also, data gaps. So whilst we did a lot of reconciliation to make sure our data was right just before we rolled out the bins, because obviously that influences how many bins we ordered, but along the way, as we were actually physically rolling out bins, we discovered, all these properties that weren't subdivided but had extra bins, granny flats that had extra bins along the time. So, it's just, you just learn to live with it and adapt and pivot when those things, when you're challenged with those things. So for us, next steps, so obviously, like I mentioned, we're planning now the rollout of stage 2. We've just recently completed a FOGO survey, so we're just obviously learning, getting the feedback from that, learning to improve not only FOGO stage 1, but also what to include in FOGO stage 2. We're heavily focusing on now with contamination audits, so as part of our resources and part of the waste team, and that explains the dashboard. So we have staff on ground that physically go out, check bins, check for contamination, door knock, speak to the residents to improve that service. And that's critical because that lends back to the contract that we have with our service provider who processes FOGO. Because in our contract, we do have tier pricing for contamination. So it's one of those things that you need to remember. Even though you've signed a contract, you're appointed contractors, but there's that ongoing relationship that you have to have with the contractors. Because it's one of the things, it's 10 years that you need to work with them to help ensure that the product meets the outcomes that we're working towards. And for us, what that looks like is that, on a weekly basis or every once a month, I'm sending my process team and go, how are we tracking with contamination? What are we seeing as the main trends coming out so that we can deal with it early on from an education perspective? And obviously, it works in our best interest because if we can keep the contamination down, it also means that the fee I'm paying from a tonnage perspective is reduced as well. And who knows, if I achieve no contamination, maybe we can strike up a negotiation of reducing my fees even further. But, we'll go from there. That's a potential next step, maybe. So I guess, just to sum things up, what is best practice? So that was obviously a best practice for Parramatta. And there might be opportunities for your councils to take some of that and go, that works for us entirely. But it's one of those things about, be open to change, have the resources, have those early discussions on with the internal stakeholders because you're going to need them on that journey. And, one size doesn't fit all. And it takes time to educate residents. It's not like one of those overnight switches where you go, here's a bin, put it in, and a miracle happens. If you look at recycling, it's taken decades, and it's no different to FOGO. And that's the end of my presentation.